Welcome to Tech Smarter. This is the place where we talk with innovators, operators, and investors who are actively changing the face of aging services. My name is Abby Ritchie. I am the tech guru at the Smarter Service, and we are here every Wednesday talking to people who are making a big difference. I want to thank our sponsors today, Leading Age Arizona, and thank the Smarter Service for producing this episode. Now, if you are a senior living operator and you're finding that staff time is being absorbed by resident tech questions, and we know their questions have questions, reach out to us. Go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn and let us help you professionalize this growing demand. Now, without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and bring on my guest. Welcome to Tech Smarter, Joel.
Hello, Abby.
Hi,
Thank
Joel.
you for the welcome.
You are so welcome. It's great to see you. Joel and I have been colleagues for quite a while and run into each other at conferences here and there. So I am thrilled to have you here today on Tech Smarter.
Thank you. It's an honor and privilege to be on your show. I'm really thrilled to be able to do this. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Joel, for people who are not familiar with you, could you please share about your background, how you found yourself working in aging services?
Absolutely. Like so many of us in aging services, it's always a journey that takes us from one place to the other. I started my career in the enterprise software world. I was in technology for over almost 20 years. And then as I started to see the opportunities related to shifting demographics, with more and more people living longer and wanting and needing more things, I got really curious about where technology fits into all that and where community and our societal programs need to shift in order to support these changing options around aging. And so I got hooked about 15 years ago when the first baby boomers were turning 65, and I'm as excited and more as I've ever been, given what's happening now and the potential for things as we go forward.
Wonderful. And you are actively preparing for the upcoming ASA conference. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Be happy to. The American Society on Aging, I'll refer to it as ASA, is an organization that goes back more than 70 years. And we've been hosting this conference for, I think, over 50 years as well. And it's just a tremendous opportunity for people across the sectors of aging services to come together. We have people that are working directly with older adults. We have people that are associated with home care, senior living, academic centers, community-based organizations, for-profits, startups. It's a real mixing pot of professionals. And when I first went to the ASA conference 15 years ago, I knew I had found my people, because these are people that are deeply committed to making tremendous change, not only in our society, but to impact how people live longer and do so in a healthful and optimized way.
Wonderful. You mentioned just a bit ago about your work in technology, and you're often the bridge between tech companies and the people who are actually caring for older adults. I'm curious, why is it so hard to get tech companies and, say, senior living communities to actually talk to each other and work on the same team?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, and it's a challenge that I've been struggling through for the last 15 years. And the reality is it's about language and culture, what it comes down to. I spent a good portion of my career working for startups. And when you're in a startup environment, you have to operate. You have to move quickly. You have to adapt quickly. You have to recognize what's happening in your environment. And sometimes it's not always clear what you need to do. And so you're having to be resilient. And I think what we have to find is those partners who can work with us and recognize that need for adaptability. Let's use that word, adaptability, and finding opportunities where we can work together and be in alignment, both on timing, both on the resources that are involved, And then what are we trying to do together, and making sure that those goals and those outcomes are in alignment. That's where a lot of times we see things really sort of struggle to coalesce.
We have a saying at the Smarter Service that we're very bendy. And, just because our service shows up one way doesn't mean that it couldn't show up and provide in a slightly different way. So I think it's really important as a tech company or a service provider to be nimble, right? Just to be nimble and to be able to shift where the need is going. And that can be really challenging in senior living because we have a lot of people who've been in their positions for a very long time and only want it done one way.
It's an issue, Abby, and I think it's a great point. It's a function of people trying to serve and trying to do so in the way that they know works and in a way that makes sense for the people they're working with. However, there's also an opportunity to try things differently. And I've met a number of people in senior living. They're very open to change and they're very open to innovation. They just need to make sure that it works for their environment and for their circumstances. And that's sometimes where there's that disconnect. So it's an opportunity to really bring people together from that startup phase, from that technology phase, with those people who know a system that works, and we need to find a blending so it can work for both organizations in that type of collaboration.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, it sounds to me like a pilot could often be the best solution in a situation like that. So you could try out the technology in advance to agreeing to adopt it 100%.
Pilots are great, and particularly when there's identified goals and there's understanding of what could go wrong or what could change during a pilot, that enables you to also see other opportunities that can come out of it. And what I would say with any pilot is, before you start one, there should be an understanding of what would make that pilot most successful, and then what happens after that. Let's work with the idea that we're going to be successful. We're going to work together towards this common outcomes that are good for both organizations. But then what happens too often is the pilot ends and there's no plan. There wasn't a predetermined direction that if we're successful together, this is how we're going to take it from pilot to implementation at a broader level, and ideally at scale, right? That's the challenge. So if we can front load some of that effort and talk and think about it in a way that can change, that's when the best things happen out of a pilot project.
Yeah, it sounds like so much work needs to go into both the front end and the back end. I know we've seen each other at, say, CES before, and we've been able to see all sorts of tech gadgets come across our desks, and they all sound interesting and innovative. What would you say, in your experience, is one type of gadget that you've seen really open up the eyes of an older adult?
So in my experience, the things that best work are build on things that people are already familiar with, and doesn't require a big learning transition in order to make that part of your everyday life. So what we've certainly seen over the last couple of years with the introduction of voice-directed technology is that's in many ways the simplest way to incorporate someone that can have various levels of technology expertise and skill, but it's a very simple and easy way for them to get started with a new technology. And so I think that onboarding component is really, really key. And it doesn't have to be dumbed down. It has to be simple in a way that builds off of what people already know. And frankly, that needs to happen whether someone is 80 or in their 40s or their 20s or in their teens. We need to make it easy for people and intuitive for them to adopt this new technology. So there's plenty of gadgets. We've seen things related to wearables that people can wear on their wrists, on their fingers as some kind of a ring. That's where I think some of the most excitement is how can it best relate to what people are already experiencing, and then helps them see another way to expand upon that and obtain value through that process.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind is Camino, which is the smart walker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's older adults are using a walker all the time. There's been very little innovation in that space. And so I remember when Camino first started producing a beta prototype, and just to see that you can put AI into something like that so that a physical therapist can track the kind of movement that a patient is having when they're not there at the physical therapy office. And it can also do something like give you a little extra boost. It could brake assist. It could collapse down. Like, I love to see these type of innovations occur in something that people are using every single day, and how we can make it better for them.
I think that's fantastic. And I think what you're suggesting is when people can see the benefits for themselves, they don't get then intimidated by the technology. They can see how it's going to work for them almost immediately, whether it's themselves in navigating, their environment, or if they can work with someone like a physical therapist, and it's going to inform and provide guidance through that expert that's going to make it easier and better for the older adult to get more from that experience.
Yeah, we're also rather consumed with that at the Smarter service, just making sure that the adoption is there. And like you said earlier, it's not that you don't necessarily have to be 80, you could be 18, but when you're introducing technology, especially in the senior living community, we want to make sure that the adoption for retention is consistent. We know statistically that a lot of the engagement platforms, for instance, within senior living communities, perhaps only like 10% of the features are being used. Mm-hmm. And unless they're consistently taught about new things. So anyway, I could talk about that forever, but I want to go back to the upcoming conference and talk about the theme this year, which is belonging. And it's really about making sure that older folks are not feeling lonely. I'm wondering how we can use technology to help people make friends rather than just, for instance, staring at a screen all day.
Yes, this is an issue that is affecting our society at all levels, at all ages. How do we help people feel a part of something? How do we help them integrate in and be part of something bigger than themselves? So many people today, for lots of reasons that we don't need to go in, it's almost self-evident, are looking for ways to align with other people in a way that's meaningful. And so it's not just about loneliness, although that's a big thing. There are many people that feel disconnected in a way that is quite traumatic to them. So what the technology that is available today is allowing us to do, and it, in many ways is as simple as a Zoom platform, right? It's just about enabling people to be connected in a meaningful way to other people. And what I believe that the big opportunity is to be a facilitator from just online connectivity to what does it mean offline? What does it mean in my community? What does it mean in my senior living residency? What does it mean if I'm aging in my home or community? How do I connect with other people, like-minded or of different mind, in my geographic area in a way that brings me back into a way that is meaningful for my life? Can I contribute in a way that is meaningful to me and to others around me? That's what so many people are looking for. Nobody wants to be perceived as old. And because our society has convinced us or socialized us that old means it's time for you to step out of the way, right? We want to be a part of where we are, whether it's a housing community, whether it's a neighborhood, whether it's right a downtown area of an urban environment. We want to know that when we go out of our house, we are valued for who we are and what we have to offer to those around us.
Yeah, you're absolutely reminding me of a recent conference that we were both at, the University of Retirement Communities. And this is a growing space where there are retirement communities such as ASU Marabella, where older adults have chosen to live basically on campus within a senior living community so that they can gain access to all of the offerings that are at a university. And, for me, this was a new type of conference that I hadn't been to before. And I was really inspired to hear about the different retirement communities that are popping up across the country, actually across the globe, because we had people there from Korea as well that were saying that this is becoming a growing interest. And just tying that into allowing someone to feel valuable, to feel connected, to feel like they're part of a larger community is so valuable at this stage of life. Did you also receive that kind of inspiration at the conference?
Well, you're absolutely, and thank you for bringing this up, because I'm a believer that we are underutilizing our higher ed institutions as it relates to what it could mean for older adults living better longer. If we look at what higher ed is all about, it's about learning and helping transition people into that next phase of their lives. We just have it in our minds that only really happens when you're 18 or 21 or 24 or in our youth. But absolutely, we've seen over the last 40 years a number of lifelong learning programs that cater to older adults in the community who don't have to live on campus, but are able to participate in courses designed for them in order to have opportunities for learning as they go forward. What you're pointing to, though, is a different entity, and this is what excites me is the multi-generational component of that. Because anything we can do to bring young adults and older adults together, I think only enhances the experience of everybody involved. And so the type of experience at Mirabella in Arizona State enables young adults and older adults to take classes together. So it's not just designed for an older adult, but keeps them separate. It brings everybody together. So older adults get to learn from other older adults, and they get to learn from the people that are what we typically think of, but frankly is no longer as relevant. The typical college student being the 18 to 22-year-old.
Yeah, it reminds me of why I was there presenting on of the importance of having tech concierge within a university retirement community, because everything is online. Yes. Everything. So even if you want to participate in a lecture or you want to go to a show and you need to get a QR, everything is online. But not everyone knows how to get into the portal. How do we make sure, for instance, that high-tech aging doesn't leave people out who really cannot gain access?
Well, there's a number of issues related to that, Abby, and certainly some of that is, if we think about access to broadband and access to the ability to connect at that basic level, we have a number of parts of our society that aren't able to access our online services and systems in an adequate way. So there's that sort of access component, which we as a society need to address better. And then there's sort of at that individual level, how do we help people onboard into technology that they may or may not have previously been familiar with? And then it's not just the onboarding, it's how do they adapt along the way? As we all know, what has worked for us, what is our standard way of doing it when we start using a given platform, can change in a matter of months. So there has to be a system in place that enables people to learn initially and then learn continually. And I
Yeah.
think that's where a lot of those systems break down, and where that concierge service is crucial to people being able to connect and stay connected.
Yeah, 100%. What I always say in this regard is that, and I apologize for the Scottsdale soundtrack in the background.
Hearing a little bit of background noise, but
It
that's all
just
right. We'll
it
power through.
happens here, right? What I've noticed in my research is that an older adult is a traditional learner, and we can't change that about them. And so what we can do though is we can cater to the fact that they're going to want a more traditional experience when it comes to learning in general, and they may want to understand the basics and the foundation for the concept that they're learning, as well as have a handout and maybe even a workbook to reflect on in their own time. And a lot of today's education does not revolve around that, and so it is a challenge. One thing I wanted to ask you about, and I'm curious if this is something that you discussed at the conference. It's really about changing how we talk about aging, and most of what we see, most ads for older adults, it's about fixing problems or stopping aging, and it all just feels pretty negative. And I know firsthand, anytime I hear someone say facility, nursing home, um, old people, like it always just rubs me the wrong way. How do you think that companies should change their language to treat older adults like the smart, active customers that they are?
Yes, it's such a challenge and an opportunity for our society, because we tend to utilize language that reminds people of what they are no longer, as opposed to inspiring them to take advantage of what they've learned and what they could possibly be. So when we talk about technology, it's got to be intriguing in a way that inspires hope and opportunity for everybody involved. And I think what our tech companies, and frankly all companies, could be doing is, instead of using phrases like, easy to use or elder friendly, we need to align with how people see themselves. And they don't necessarily see themselves as older adults or seniors. They think of themselves as people who just want and need different things now than they may have wanted in the past. So we have to focus on agency, helping people with their independence and their interdependence. And we have to use language that inspires confidence, not shame. And that's a tricky path to go down. But we've seen a lot of progress over the last number of years in that shift from using the phrase senior, for example. More often than not, now we're hearing about elders, and that implies wisdom as opposed to this idea of separateness. And I think that's changing, and it can't change soon enough.
Yeah, whenever I have the opportunity to speak with innovators, and actually I did last night at the Age Tech Connect Arizona Tech Week event, I'm always encouraging innovators to spend time with the people they're creating solutions for, and to really fall in love with the person they're creating the solution for over their solution. And additionally, I always say to people, like, please, plug and play is not an answer. It's not a comfort for anyone who is an older adult, because plug and play really is never a plug and play. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You simply plug it in, you got it. And that is such a fallacy when it comes to working with an older adult. It is never a plug and play situation. So I feel like that's also one of those things that we really need to be teaching when it comes to introducing technology to older adults.
Yes, I want to reference something that I saw. It's always great when we can see change happening in pop culture, and anybody that's been following this season of the Pit on HBO. We were able to see a scene a couple weeks ago where an older adult was treated with respect and dignity, and he made a statement that sits with me in such a powerful way. He said, every older adult knows what it was like to be younger, but very few young adults can really understand and appreciate what it means to feel to be older in this community, in this society. And I think that that's really the opportunity that all of us at any age can think about. How do we design with older adults, not just with what we think they want or need, but really communicate in a way that allows us to hear them and hear beneath the surface of what they may be wanting or needing, but don't necessarily have the exact language to know specifically. It's everybody's job to bring that into reality and in some ways provide opportunities that people didn't know they wanted or needed until it was presented to them.
Yes, it sort of reminds me of the Smarter service. When we typically start off in a community, when we're helping people within our tech desk and we're working one-on-one with people, a lot of times we start off in this break fix mode. Something's broken, can you help me fix it? Once something is broken and we're able to help them fix it, then we start building on, how can we build the technology out so it's really focused on their interests. And once we do that, we see that they begin to really build confidence and feel empowered to use their technology their way. But there are graduated steps to getting there. And it's been a fascinating trajectory that we didn't expect for it to be that way, but we've really seen people come so far within that tech education piece. And, I want to know, just based on your experience in working with technology companies and seeing what's out there, what is one area that tech companies are ignoring that should be addressed?
Oh, I think it's a great opportunity in particular. I think that the area that we need to help people now, and again, this is happening at all ages, is not just talk about what AI can do, but what does it really mean? I've got an 85-year-old dad who is going to a weekly class on AI, and he's saying he's learning a lot, but he doesn't really know what to do to incorporate it into his life. So that's where this bridge of, how do we take technology and how do we help people? I mean, there's technology now that's helping people with fall prevention, for example. It's a tremendous opportunity. We're just scratching the surface. We've got to be able to translate what these technologies mean for people and how they can start to use them on a daily basis. And we can't just put AI in front of it and think that's going to mean something to them. We really have to do so in a way that shows people in an incremental way, here's a way to get started, and then here's a way to build on it. And then how do you take risks around what, safe risks, if you will? How do you challenge yourself to incorporate it into other things that you're doing or wanting as part of your daily routine? And I think when people can bring it into their daily routine, whatever it is, it becomes a part of how they see themselves and how they can thrive. And that's what we're all trying to do. How do we help people thrive at any age, not just when they're considered active and part of society, but now as they're reaching these new levels, and we're only going to find ways to keep people alive longer. Now that next phase of longevity and increased health span is, how do they make the most of those new years and those extra years that people can take advantage of as we go forward?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Joel, as we wrap up today, how can people connect with you for more information, both to reach out to you as well as for the conference?
Absolutely. There's, I think you'll see on the screen my email address, which is really the quickest and fastest way to get a hold of me through the American Society on Aging. I welcome conversations that would allow us to take these topics we discussed today to another level. So thank you very much, Abby, for giving me this platform and this opportunity to share with your audience and be a part of what you're doing, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to our sponsors at Leading Age Arizona. And we will see you all right back here next week.